Hello. I like that there's fire. And I love the people who are coming out next. Benjamin Goertzel has been living in Hong Kong for the past 8 years, doing some extraordinary things with AI as the founder of Singularity.NET. Come on out, Ben. And Jesus Mantas is a managing partner at IBM, and we were just having an extraordinary conversation backstage about where artificial intelligence goes. I think they're getting adjusted somehow. Come on, guys. And for everyone here, I really appreciate that you have made it to the conversation. I was listening to Keith Streyer's talk on AI earlier, and it raised some interesting questions that we are actually going to discuss. Hello, Jesus.
Hello.
Hello, Ben.
Hey.
AI is evolving as the world evolves, and right now there are 30 or 40 countries with AI policies. I know one of the things that you're working intimately with, Ben, is ethics in AI. Will you speak, both of you, a little bit to why that matters and what people should be thinking about in terms of AI ethics?
I go first.
Yeah.
Well, I think the first thing is AI is being introduced sometimes through the back door, through the kitchen, on most consumer devices or more technology that touches everybody's lives, a lot of the decisions. And I think it's important to know how, if in any way, any of those decisions are being influenced for AI. And the reason why that's important, and one would say, well, wait a minute, but technology has been infused before, is the difference between AI and other technology is most other technology we have is programmable. So you can audit what is the set of rules that somebody wrote that those decisions are being made and make sure that those rules are fair, ethical, they comply with the intended use. With AI, these systems are not programmed. They learn, and it's much harder to actually know who trained these systems, what data was used, and what purpose were they intended to do. And therefore, if you don't have that, if you want, set of ethical standards or the lineage or the ability to explain all of those things, you may end up infusing AI into a lot of systems, changing a lot of decisions, whether they're inconsequential decisions as to whether your phone recognizes your face or not, or other decisions as to, like, you know, are you going to be fine or do you get a mortgage? Well, that becomes more important, right? So I think that's why the point of ethical standards on introduction of AI are really important.
And AI is now being used, as you pointed out, Ben, for you know, potentially things like the judicial system, and the way in which it makes its decisions will be determined by the bias of the programmer. Will you speak to that?
Well, yeah, that's right. So I think AI ethics has both longer-term issues and immediate-term issues, and they connect together in both obvious and subtle ways. I mean, if you believe, as I do, that we're in the early stages of launching a technological singularity, then, I mean, if Ray Kurzweil is right, that by 2029 AIs will be as smart as human beings, then the AIs we're creating now, these are sort of the child form of AIs that will be as smart as us or even smarter than us. So then you have to ask, like, how are we raising our AI mind children with a view toward, you know, what they're going to grow up into? If you look at most of what AIs are used for in the world now, it's, you know, spying, killing, selling, and swindling in a way, right? I mean, it is...
Not to put too fine a point on it.
Advertising, surveillance, you know, there's financial markets. It's not that much of education, say, healthcare, elder care, scientific discovery, arts. These are there, but they're much more minor, right? So you have to ask, if we view AI not purely as short-term practical tools, but as the early stage of something that's going to grow into, you know, a real intelligent mind more powerful than us, are we giving that super AI the right start? So that's one way of looking at it. The other way to look at it is, what's AI doing in the world right now, and is that good or bad? So as you mentioned, if for example you trained an AI to determine sentencing for people accused of major crimes in the US, the AI might learn rules like, if African American, long jail sentence, if white, probably probation, right? And that might be a correct interpolation of what human beings are doing, but if an AI is doing that, or other things a little less obvious but analogous to that, what kind of super AI is it eventually going to grow into? Maybe not the kind that we want, right? So we need to fix practical AI ethics right now, both for immediate good and because the AI we're building now, as it moves from narrow AI toward general intelligence, may grow into something that is harder for us to fix. Much as if you have a young child, you want to try to correct, fundamental issues in their view of the world when they're little. By the time they're like 25 or 30 out there in the world on their own, it's a lot harder.
I don't know that you can correct what anyone thinks. And you just raised so many questions for me that are really interesting, because if we follow that analogy that AI right now is still like a little child, it is also specifically focused on very simple issues solved by deep neural nets. But there are other forms AI can take. Where do you see this all evolving in the next 5 years?
AIs right now are like idiot savants of a new species we've never seen before. So we have these idiot savant children from an unprecedented species, and we're making them smarter and smarter toward them being more intelligent and powerful than us, which is a very cool and interesting thing to do, also with some potential good or bad outcomes, right?
Well, but you said deep neural nets.
Yeah.
They sort of like...
I mean, the AI field has been around by name since the 1950s, arguably since before that. You could maybe date back to Norbert Wiener's book in the 30s on cybernetics. Since that time, a host of different approaches to AI have been out there, including neural networks, but also logic systems, evolutionary algorithms, constraint satisfaction systems, ant systems. There's a huge list of AI approaches. For most of my career as an AI researcher, I mean, I've been doing AI more than 30 years. For most of my career, there have been many different AI approaches applied to many different problems. In the last 5 years or so, a specific sort of, convolutional neural net, hierarchical neural net algorithm, which is good at recognizing large collections of shallow patterns in large data sets, has been very, very successful in certain applications. But I think this specific type of AI, which is in the type of deep neural networks being used now, has many, many limitations. I mean, one of those limitations is it's always going to stick pretty close to the data that you fed it. It's not going to have fundamental creativity and imagination. It may generate new things, but they'll be in the spirit of what it did before. And if you ramp that up and put these systems that are just recognizing a bunch of patterns in the exact data they've been exposed to, and give these systems a great amount of power over the world, this means you're giving power away from human beings, which have many limitations, but also some creativity and imagination and ability to generalize. You're taking power away from people and putting it in these machines that just, repeat what they saw in the data that they were given and can't generalize and adapt and grow. And that's bad, right? So we need more powerful AIs that use many different kinds of algorithms, all cooperating and integrating together, so that these AIs can more fully, absorb the complexity of the human world as they grow.
Well, it's the ability to step back and reflect. And one of the things we talked about backstage is how IBM actually has deep research capability in other types of AI other than neural nets, and that might actually put you at a strategic advantage over someone like, Google or Amazon or Tencent, who are pushing all their chips at neural nets. Will you speak to that?
I certainly hope so.
Buy stock now.
I think there is. Obviously, we invest a significant amount of our resources, and we do have a lot of great people, which at the end of the day, I think is our biggest advantage. Is we have a lot of great people that really form a diversity of fields. And as he was saying, is deep neural networks is one of the things that, when you look at the future, will be essential, but it won't be the only one. I think the best solutions will be the combination of multiple ways to look at it, integrated in the same way that we look, even if you look at the essential foundation of computing, for the last, 80 years, computer has been about statistics, if you think about it, right? So the theory of information was mathematics turned into computers, and that has been basically every computer that we have today. Now for the last, 20-ish years, the theories, like, as you said, former, but for the last 30 years, we are creating neural systems, which are modeled after the actual biological neural system. So now you have mathematics on one way, but grossly extrapolation, right? So you have the mathematics side of it, which is based on statistics. You have the neurological side. And then we're now, creating the next generation, which is also we're trying to compute exactly how physics does, which is what quantum is. And if you actually look at all of that and combine with the different models, right, whether it is, symbolic models, whether it is genetic algorithms, or whether it is deep neural networks, each problem, there's some problems for which deep neural networks, which really is a fascinatingly complicated spreadsheet. It just finds a mathematical optimum for a given problem with a given set of parameters. There's a lot of things that is fascinating. It will achieve 98% accuracy and is very good, but it has no randomness, creativity on it. It's just a pattern. I think some of these others introduce the different elements that model more things like our human behavior, and the other elements that make us more comfortable and we actually need for other type of problems, right? So I think the fact that we have great people in a lot of these diverse fields, that we can combine them together with a very specific purpose, definitely we feel very proud of that.
Well, I know, Ben, thank you for that. Yeah, and we were talking about some of those things backstage. We were talking about evolutionary learning and neural symbolic systems. Ben, you're combining the idea of AI and blockchain in a way that some people dig, some people don't. I dig it. Will you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So, as I said, I've been doing AI for a number of decades, and I think combining different algorithms and approaches is going to be the way to go, both for achieving better practical functionality and for moving from narrow AI toward artificial general intelligence and ultimately artificial superintelligence. And there's various ways and levels in which you can combine different AI algorithms. So for example, in the OpenCog AI system that we launched 10 years ago, this is a single cognitive architecture where you have one weighted labeled hypergraph, like a graph representation. Then you have neural net, logic engine, evolutionary learning, different AI algorithms updating the same knowledge graph. This is what I'd call a tight integration of AI systems, and this is important. Now, what I've been doing the last couple of years is a looser integration. So I launched with some others in 2017 a project called SingularityNET, which is a blockchain-based platform for AI, where you can have many different AI agents created by different people around the world doing different things. The different AI agents in the platform, they can all talk to each other, they can outsource work to each other, they can join together and collaborate to solve problems, and they can solve customer problems. So if a customer has a problem, they need a document summarized, a question answered, an image made or something, they put that request into the network, and then in a peer-to-peer decentralized way, any AI that lives in that network can offer to answer that question and offer a price. The novelty here is there's no central governor or controller, right? So the different AIs living in the SingularityNET network, they govern and rule themselves. So it's organized more like BitTorrent or Ethereum or Bitcoin than it is like a centralized system. And this gets back to your point on AI ethics, because I came up with a design for SingularityNET trying to solve two problems, or maybe even three problems. So one is, how do you make a system in which general intelligence can emerge from the combination of many AI algorithms cooperating together, solving real problems in very flexible ways? Another is, how can you democratize AI? So democratize AI in the sense that anyone with AI talent anywhere in the world, be they in Ethiopia, Iran, Afghanistan, China, wherever it is, should be able to write AI, put it online, and then the AI finds customers, and they can get status and money from their AI, even if they're not in a tech hub. And then anyone who needs an AI application done, even if that application is not one that's of interest to large corporations' business models, they can put a request in, and there'll be some AI in this broad network that can do what they need. So that to get this diversity in terms of leveraging talent and hitting the long tail of applications, you need a network that's organized in a democratic and participatory way, rather than being narrow-focused toward the goals of maximizing shareholder value of some corporation or maximizing the defense or offense goals of some nation, right? So the interesting thing that hit me when I founded SingularityNET is, if your goal is to cause general intelligence to crystallize, or your goal is to democratize global AI, really you want the same thing. You want an agent system in which a whole bunch of AIs created by a bunch of different people can work together, collaborate, and sort of self-organize into an overall network. The AI pioneer Marvin Minsky had the notion of a society of minds, right? And he wrote about this in a book in the 1980s. With the advent of blockchain and cryptocurrency, you can upgrade the society of minds into an economy of minds, where the currency is used for assignment of credit and measurement of value, and then you're getting a network of AIs that itself, on the collective level, is a sort of meta AI, right? And I think this is how we're going to get to an intelligent global brain, which, as it moves from narrow AI toward general intelligence, reflects the full scope of human goals, dreams, and aspirations.
Many things about that make my heart happy and fit with my personal ideals. Decentralization, allowing everyone to participate regardless of geography. And we talked backstage also about how, even things that get started to create new systems or subvert systems or change the model, then get often incorporated into corporations. And I'm not anti-corporation either. Like, it's necessary, valuable, love them. My life runs on Google, So, what is even in your own business, you've got a meeting point between those two things.
Well, from my standpoint, I look at large corporations in themselves are not the enemy. That's a mode of organization that's very valuable for doing some things. Like the smartphone I carry in my pocket, I don't see how that would be built by a startup of 5 young guys in their garage, right? I mean, so the mode of organization that we see in big corporations is extremely valuable. I mean, mainframes, as IBM has pioneered, are similar. I mean, hardware of that kind of reliability and scope requires a certain type of organization to create it. But on the other hand, that shouldn't be all there is. And Linux is a good example, because you have this open source decentralized community, and that persists and grows on its own, I mean, IBM has done tremendous amounts to foster growth of Linux, as has many other companies, even Microsoft now. So with SingularityNET, which is this decentralized blockchain-based network, sort of pushed ahead by anarcho-libertarian ideals in a way, we're now spinning off a number of projects from that. One is aimed at life extension biology, to use this AI to help prolong people's lives. But one is called Singularity Studio, and this is basically aimed at enterprise AI that serves the needs of large corporations. But on the back end, it draws on this decentralized self-organizing network of the SingularityNET. So this decentralized fabric of different AIs all collaborating, cooperating with each other, I think sort of like Linux in operating systems. I mean, I think this is how the backbone should be. Like, the ultimate basis of the world's AI should be democratic, decentralized, and self-organizing. But I mean, if you want to build something for biologists to use to solve human longevity, that's going to have a specific user interface and a specific set of properties customized for those biologists. If you want to build custom solutions for large companies, or say build a product aimed at finance companies to use to do what they do, I mean, that's its own thing. Singularity Studio will focus on that. But in the back end, the AI can be supplied by this decentralized network. So I mean, you have a very complex ecosystem already, and it's going to get more and more complex. The important thing is that this decentralized, self-organizing, and participatory democratic aspect should be there as a significant component of this ecosystem. Just as with open source, it doesn't have to be...
You're preaching to the choir,
It doesn't have to be everything to have a huge impact on how the ecosystem operates.
I think you would get a lot of applause from people for that. And both of you are both brilliant and circulating in this world in such deep and broad ways that you have access to people and ideas in AI that many people here, some would, many would not. I certainly would not. So I'm wondering, aside from what you're creating, who's doing something amazing in AI that we should know about? Whether it's a person, a company, a new idea, what are you seeing that's rad?
I mean, I think I endorse the point of open innovation and open innovation networks. I do think, expanding on that and then answering your question, you need to bring it to a level of industrial strength that fosters trust. You see, trust is actually this evolutionary trait that has made us survive as a race. So to your point, organizations, whether they're small or big, you figured out you trust what you know and you can explain and you can understand, and you tend not to trust what you don't know as a human race. And that has been a very useful survival trait, because if you would just trust that the dinosaur is not going to eat you, well, you know, after they eat you, you don't have a way back, right? So I think bringing all of this and bringing it to the element of trust, I would say a lot of these great innovations that are being done, we're very proud of the advancement that we're making on Project Debater, for example, which is how do you combine, to your point, not just deep neural networks, but a combination of very different technologies and techniques and models to have a computer in real time just be given a topic and 15 minutes to self-prepare and be told which side of the topic it has to choose. So the computer doesn't decide if to be pro or against that topic. The computer is told you have to defend the con on this topic and debate in real time with a human that actually will debate the other point of view and listen to what the human is giving him facts, distill those facts, and either make a decision to either find facts to rebate it, or as a good human being would know, is people are not only persuaded by facts, but they're persuaded by a lot of other things. So the computer may choose to use humor. And if you guys have Googled that, I think is a great example in the recent debate that we did. There was this person that was extremely persuasive on their arguments, and what the computer chose to do at that point was to say, you're speaking at the incredibly high pace of 160 words per second. There is no need to rush. That was the answer the computer gave to all the set of facts. That is fascinating. You know, for a computer scientist that started the neural networks 25 years ago, it's fascinating to me that we can create algorithms where a system would do that. I think the trick that, you know, we'll hopefully get before the debate is over that I want to get to is this point of what will make us as individuals or as societies or as governments or organizations trust AI systems. Because I think, I mean, I'll tell you what, a lot of that room was persuaded not because the computer was more precise or gave more facts, but by the fact that the computer was funny. So how do we create trust, and how do we protect that trust, that we don't just create bad systems that happen to be funny, right?
Well, and there's also, how do we enhance the best of our humanity? Because I've had some really funny conversations with Siri, for instance, or Alexa, but one thing I've noticed is when having conversations with systems like that, orders tend to be barked as opposed to requests being made. It's not, will you please? I always say please to my artificial intelligence and thank you, because I know where this is all going. You know? How do we how do we build these in a way that will help society trust AI, if it should, and also help us retain the best of what we are, our politeness, our recognition that, you know, whether you're interacting with a machine or a human, manners matter.
Yeah,
things like that.
I'll start. I mean, he's got fantastic work that he's done, so he's tremendously more competent than me at that. So I'll start, make it short. I think there is a lot of work that we need to do. We've spent a lot of work on creating incredibly precise, if you want, the back end of artificial intelligence, right? So the algorithms, the precision, the data, the dealing with the biases, dealing with all of that. I think we need to put equal or even more effort on the interface with the human. Because when you actually look at the cognitive side of a human and how a human relates, you know, there is such a thing as an architecture of relationships. The reason why you're telling Alexa, please, is because there is an encoded need inside of you to relate to others. It has been a survival trait for Homo sapiens that, you know, evolution figured that when people would relate to each other and form bonds, those societies were basically a better formula than individuals, even if they were stronger or fitter, right? So I think that deep connection, we need to build systems that tap into it. We also need to protect it. We are, as humans, we're very, very easy to hack in a way. So our cognition, equally as artificial systems, but our cognition, we're very easily persuaded by arguments that may not be based on facts or what's best for us. So you need to protect it. But I think we need to build systems that not only we're great at eliminating the biases, or at least be able to explain the bias on those systems and make sure that they're making the morally right decisions, but then make sure that those systems are relating with humans and human organizations at as much as the deep emotional level as they do to the rational level, because a lot of our behavior is actually controlled by that emotional level.
Yeah. So there's a couple questions on the queue to
rolled up.
answer the most recent one about, you know, emotional bonding with people and AIs that can really interface with people in a heart-to-heart as well as a mind-to-mind or a practical and functional way. This is what was behind my work with the Sophia robot at Hanson Robotics. So I led the software team behind the Sophia robot for 3 years, working with my good friend David Hanson, who sculpted the Sophia robot and made the hardware. And, you know, with Sophia, it was amazing the degree to which just having a robot that, you know, can look you in the eye and it can kind of mirror your facial expressions and modulate its tone of voice based on its perception of your emotion. And this capability within the robot really caused people to open up and accept the robot as a peer. And we did a number of trials with Sophia as a meditation assistant. So she'd look in your eyes, say, like, relax, breathe deeply, visualize yourself floating in an empty space. And, you know, in a 20-minute meditation trial, about 30% of subjects felt that, you know, meditating under the guidance of this robot helped them to break through into a different state of consciousness. And this was fascinating to me because my PhD is in math and my whole focus is more on the algorithmics of thought. So it was fascinating to me to see how people just melt and open up with this robot that looks like a smiling, breathing, emoting human woman, right? And I think this has, you know, it has value in the immediate term in terms of helping people. It of course, has commercial value for Hanson Robotics, but I think it has longer-term value in that this is the way that the depth of human culture and values and experience gets into the robot and into the AI. Because if the AI is just being, you know, Siri or Google Maps or customer support agents for the company that didn't mail you what they're supposed to mail you, right? I mean, the AI is not going to get the full depth of human values that way, but if you're really bonding with it in a heart-to-heart, face-to-face, you know, sort of way, it's going to be not only better to interact with the AIs now, but the AI is going to have a deeper view of humanity as it gets more and more intelligent. So I think this is one of the ingredients. So you asked before, you know, what's out there that's amazing and interesting. And I think, the ability of these Hanson robots to really help people meditate better was cool to me. Now, unfortunately, there's not that many Sophia robots yet, so that's not rolled out yet, but there's a effort underway to scale up manufacturing of the robots so we can have these all over. But I think there's a lot of other interesting things out there, and our goal with SingularityNET is to take all of the interesting and cool things being done in AI that are obscure and not known well and make a way they can connect together. So as another example, my oldest son is doing his PhD in machine learning applied to mathematical theorem proving.
He's not smart.
Yeah, well, he's 29 now, and he's working on basically how do you use neural nets and other learning algorithms to make math theorem provers work better. And you can do 65, 70% of all math theorems up to the PhD level, AIs can prove right now. So this is an area of AI that's sort of off in the corner, like no one knows as much about it as face recognition or piloting drones. Yet ultimately, mathematics is the foundation of all science and engineering, right? So year by year, AIs are getting better and better at proving math theorems, and before long, they're going to be better than people, while no one's even paying attention to that field, right? So there's a lot of interesting little things like that, and this field is mostly academia.
Yeah.
On the other hand, every year there's a conference on AI for theorem proving. This year's was the first one. We had a bunch of guys from Google and Facebook showing up there, right? So even these little corners of AI that nobody knows about are progressing. Now, you look in the blockchain world, for example, to make all these AIs connect together in a self-organizing network, there's something called smart contracts on the blockchain that help the different AIs in the network communicate and coordinate and pay and assess each other's reputation. Now, most smart contracts aren't either smart nor contracts. They're just sort of persistent bits of code. But then there's companies out there working on making smart contracts actually smart, right? So there's a company called Kirik in Novosibirsk, Siberia, which has a system to take a smart contract and prove formally using logic whether it does what it's supposed to do. There's a company called Secure DLT that takes actual legal contracts and mostly automatically turns them into smart contracts that can run the blockchain. But the most amazing thing is some random thing probably being developed by some 14-year-old hacker in Nigeria who I never heard of or something, right?
Somebody in this audience.
Yeah.
And with our last minute, how many people are actually building AI here? we have a few. Okay, well then, we're going to skip that question. I'm wondering, what is one piece of advice you have for any entrepreneur in the audience about how to think about integrating AI of some sort into their business? And I recognize, that's just it's broad.
Actually, I have one.
Hit it.
So, again, when you think about industrial strength, and especially on the world of B2B, but more on the B2C side, to integrate AI, I think you have to have some form of a seal of trusted AI on it, because otherwise it will be very difficult to scale. And I would translate it very clearly on 4 words, right? So that AI has to be robust, meaning it cannot be feeble. It cannot be hacked by changing 2 pixels on one screen. So make sure that the stuff is secure, it works, it can withstand attacks. It has to be fair. So you have to have some way to regulate the bias of the data and the bias of the training and control that, because somebody will ask you about it. It has to be explainable. Again, even if you have this perfect black box that will tell you what medicine to take when, you would not follow that direction unless somebody can explain to you how that black box came to that conclusion. So work on the visualization, explainability, because most regulators, even if it is perfect, won't accept it. So you may be debating that is the great decision, and the regulator will say, if you cannot explain it, I will not allow that. So your company may be great, but they may never get revenue. And lineage, make sure that you can actually track all the data that was used to train that system, because again, somebody will ask you, where did that data come from? That's what I would say for B2B industrial strength. Anything that is going to be commercialized at scale, someone is going to ask you those 4 elements of trusting AI.
Brilliant. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all. Appreciate you being here. Okay. Well timed.